Good morning and welcome to this morning's webinar with special guest Murray Pat, founder of Alexander Knight Accountants. My name is Andrew Steen and I am the Sales and Marketing Director for Altius Group, who own Redwoods Dowling Kerr, Kings and Bruce & Co. Thank you for all taking the time to join us this morning. During the webinar, if you have any questions which you would like to ask, please write them in the question box on your screen. We will have time towards the end of the webinar to discuss your questions. Murray, before we begin, would you please start by introducing yourself?
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well, despite the very challenging times that we find ourselves in. Just so you know, I founded a firm of chartered accountants, Alexander Knight & Co, a number of years ago in the northwest of England. Having spent a number of years working for, let's say, some branded regional and national firms of accountants, and I look after a large number of SMEs, owner-managed businesses and entrepreneurs across the UK.
Thank you, Murray. So next week on the 23rd of October will mark the 7-month anniversary since the UK was placed into a 2-month lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Originally launched as a 3-week lockdown, the period of closure ran until the 1st of June for some sectors, with others ending their closure during late June and July. With the announcements of yesterday, it looks like business owners are in for a tough 6 months, with new regional restrictions announced, which will affect different sectors depending on the area you operate in. To try and support businesses, Mr Sunak has announced his winter plan and subsequent job support scheme. So, Murray, over to you. Can we please begin with an overview of the recent changes announced, which have extended or varied the schemes announced earlier this year?
Sure. If I just start by talking about some of the changes. I mean, my view on this generally is that businesses, we've all been we try to be weaned off the government support, but because obviously this pandemic is going on and there is no light at the end of the tunnel, they're having to introduce some changes. So the main changes that were introduced in the last few weeks were first of all associated with the loan schemes. So we have 2 types of loan schemes: the bounce back scheme and the business interruption loan scheme. And the main thing that changed with both of those schemes is that applications were until the end of September. The scheme has now been extended so that businesses can still apply for those loans up until the end of November. So I think that's good news. That's good news for business, certainly throughout. The other changes that have been made, one is in respect of VAT returns. So you may all have deferred payment of your VAT liability for the return that fell into the period to June 2020, and initially the rule was that VAT return liability had to be paid by next March, but again, recent changes that now the liability can be paid over 12 equal monthly instalments commencing next March. So again, that's a piece of good news. That's a piece of good news.
Good.
There are some other.
Sorry, carry on.
Well, no, there are some other changes, but I think we'll pick up on them later. And one of them is in particular with self-assessment tax.
Great. So now turning to the winter plan, can we start with an overview of what the winter plan actually entails?
Well, as I said before, the support from the government is reducing, and therefore, you know, the way I've looked at it is that how much cash is available to businesses through the winter plan, and how much was it under the former rules. So the main new piece of support is something called the job support scheme. So up until now, we've got the furlough scheme. The furlough scheme ceases at the end of October, and then we move on to the job support scheme. And this is a scheme that is going to run for 6 months from the beginning of November. And at the moment, there isn't really a lot of detail on HMRC's website about this. So hopefully there'll be some more as we get closer to the beginning of November. The way the scheme though is going to work is that the government are going to pay up to 1/3 of employees' hours that they cannot work as a result of the pandemic. And if I try and put this into perspective into cash terms, under the furlough scheme that's about to cease, the maximum that companies could claim for each member of staff was up to £2,500 a month, plus pension and national insurance, whereas under the job support scheme, the maximum that you can claim is just short of £700 a month. So the support is a lot less. And I think what the government were trying to do when they set this up was actually they probably didn't want to do anything, but because things haven't improved for many business owners recently, they knew they had to introduce something. So this is kind of a bit of a halfway house in terms of just short £700 a month that's available.
And who can utilise this scheme, Murray?
Well, as far as I'm aware, all companies can take advantage of these rules. And again, obviously, we were all party to announcements yesterday with lockdown regions, you know, the various tiers and all that sort of stuff. And at the moment, there doesn't seem to be a link between the job support scheme and perhaps some of those hardest hit regions.
So the job support scheme, is that a different scheme to the local lockdown furlough, which was announced for tier 3 areas where businesses are forced to close, which I think pays, is it £2,000 up to £2,100 a month?
Yeah, it is a different thing. And again, I think what HMRC and the government need to do is try to link these schemes with the local lockdown rules and support that's available, because at the moment there isn't a linkage.
Okay, so specifically the job scheme, not the local lockdown furlough scheme, but specifically for the job scheme, do you actually expect many businesses to utilise the scheme?
I think many businesses will need to utilise the scheme because, frankly, cash is king here. And one of the things I say to lots of my clients about successful and unsuccessful businesses, businesses do not go bust or do not fail through making losses. They fail when they run out of cash. So if there is an opportunity to claim support from the government, whatever that type of support is, businesses should try to take advantage of that opportunity. So I do think that businesses will claim, but I think business owners will be very frustrated by the lack of financial support available.
Okay. Now, earlier you touched on time to pay arrangements and some of the changes there. Have there been any sort of additional changes recently to the time to pay arrangements?
Well, the time to pay arrangements, my view is that HMRC are certainly more open to supporting companies with a time to pay arrangement. One of the things that was introduced a few weeks ago was that for those people that are under self-assessment and therefore have a self-assessment tax bill at the end of January, if their liability is less than £30,000, then they can automatically get a time to pay arrangement with HMRC to pay the liability over 12 months by equal instalments. So I think that's good. I think that's a really good thing. There are no penalties associated with that time to pay arrangement, but there will be interest charged on it at HMRC's rates, which is I think it's about 2.5%, something like that. So again, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
And for that deferment, do you see any pitfalls with that?
I think the main issue is like everything else. If you don't pay your liability on time, that's great. But actually, when you've got to pay it monthly, if you're not careful, you're going to soon find that the liability for the next year, so for January 2022, creeps up on you very quickly, and you've only just paid the Jan 21 liability. I think also with business owners, usually the view is we don't want to speak to HMRC. We want our advisors to speak to HMRC, or whoever speaks to HMRC. How long will it take to get through? How easy is it to organise a time to pay arrangement? What information do they need? And actually, here we've got with self-assessment, it's kind of an automatic facility.
So in terms of HMRC then, as you are a practicing accountant, founder of one of the leading Northwest accountancy practices, how are you and your clients finding HMRC and their flexibility to support business owners at the moment?
I think the guidance that HMRC have been given is that they've been told to support businesses. That's just my view. That's not based on anything other than my recent dealings with HMRC. So HMRC seem to be pretty flexible and supportive to businesses, which is good. I think with it, like everything else, they always want to know what's going on. They always want businesses accountants to be telling them the situation, and most of the time they are supportive and will be able to help business owners. But as I said, I think that's because of the guidance they've been given, and that could well change in the not too distant future.
Good. Okay, now on to another announcement that was made some months ago, actually, and as with quite a few of these announcements, they're announced with it's a great fanfare, and then actually you have to wait quite a period of time to get the T's and C's. So the grand initiative of the KickStart scheme. Before I cover off my own personal thoughts regarding this, do you want to give us an overview of the scheme, Murray?
Well, the KickStart scheme is there to help those aged 16 to 24 get into some form of employment. And the way it works is that the government will pay, I think it's up to 25 hours a week based upon national minimum wage rates for those people. So on the face of it, it is good. Personally, I think where it doesn't quite work is that for a company to be successful with a KickStart application, you've got to have a minimum of 30 members of staff. So that means that most business owners, it just doesn't work. As a result of that, the intermediaries have got involved to help bring, let's say, different employers together to hit 30.
I think the key to that is that if you want to deal direct to secure the KickStart scheme, you need to be recruiting a minimum of 30 KickStart employees, which rules out a quite significant number of businesses. The other thing is, obviously, with social distancing, if you operate a business where you can't work from home, there are not many business owners that actually have office space just lying there, sat there, that can accommodate socially distanced 30 employees. So this creation of an agency body in the middle, who are obviously getting paid to administer this scheme, is absolutely bloody crazy. We are actively looking to recruit some KickStart employees. We think we've got some great roles to offer, and the goal will be to create full-time employees at the end of the scheme. But dealing with the agency is so slow. We haven't seen any candidates. It's just all very, very administrative at the moment. Which is such a shame, because I do think that they could have made this far simpler to get live. Don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, I think I agree with you. I think there's lots of bureaucracy, and therefore the scheme itself and the principles of the scheme are great, but the scheme itself is getting bogged down with, let's call it, the middlemen, who some will be great at this, but some won't be. And that's a real shame. It's a real shame. I think in financial terms, I did a quick calculation beforehand, and I worked out that the maximum that a business owner could claim for a member of staff, and this is somebody that's at the upper end of the age profile on national minimum wage, I think the amount is just short of £900 a month that you can claim. Right. So actually, it's more than is available through the job support scheme.
Okay, so just before we move on to the sort of next section, if anyone does have a question to ask, the question box, it should be on screen or a little drop down on screen. Feel free to ask the question, and we'll cover off your questions later in the webinar. So moving on now, Murray, you often talk about cash is king, and the traditional sort of saying that everybody uses, and in the current climate, it really, preservation of cash and cash flow are what business owners will need to stay alive. With this in mind, some business owners will be considering restructuring. So question from me, which type of business owners should be considering restructuring to offer protection to themselves and their businesses?
Well, it is a good question, and we're working with a number of our clients at the moment, looking at restructuring and ring fencing their businesses. So that at a basic level, it's perhaps those business owners that have got some valuable assets in their balance sheet, and that could be property, it could be intellectual property, it could be something else, and therefore the whole purpose of ring fencing is to protect those valuable assets. And it could also be because of the inability to trade properly or fully at the moment. Now is the time to be doing this, and I would encourage all business owners, not just with ring fencing or restructuring, but all business owners should be taking advice from their professional advisors to find out what options they have.
Okay, and what other avenues do you think exist where business owners should be exploring to assist with their cash flow?
Well, as I've said before, I think all business owners should be taking advantage of the government support that's available. If I just go back to the bounce back loan as an example, the bounce back loan is, in my view, risk-free for business owners because there are no personal guarantees associated with it. So it's 100% backed by the government. So again, if you haven't taken advantage of it, I would encourage all business owners to do so. I think other than that, business owners may look to perhaps private equity or professional investors, family, all sorts of areas. And again, this is all about trying to get out the other side of this perhaps hell that lots of business owners are in, and therefore it's trying to get through this, because we don't know when things are going to calm down. We think it's all going to be linked to the vaccine coming out, but then again, when the vaccine comes out, there's still going to be a big lead time before things perhaps start to settle down.
Yeah, I think some of the assumptions seem to be based around 6 months. 6 months from a safe vaccine to actually having a significant amount of the population vaccinated. Although slightly worrying that Boris did point out yesterday that it has been 18 years since SARS and we still haven't got a vaccine for that. So yeah, good news is in short supply at the moment. Thank you for that. So I guess looking forward now, many business owners, prior to the announcement of the winter support package, there was significant talk about a November budget with policies designed to repair the damage done to the UK balance sheet. As we know, this budget is cancelled and is now anticipated to take place in March 2021. This morning, the Institute for Fiscal Studies have announced their forecast that the UK will need to raise £40 billion per year just to prevent government borrowing spiralling upwards. These figures do not include any additional future borrowing, which may be required to support the second wave. Murray, quick question, crystal ball, do you think we will be in a position where the Chancellor in March will be able to raise taxes during his budget?
Well, whether it's in March or whether it's autumn next year, as soon as things start to recover, you rest assured we will see tax rises. We've already, the government seems to be great. They like to leak things to the press and then announce it a few days later, and it feels as if that they want through the leaks everybody to realise what's going on and then calm down when the announcement is made. We've already had some potential leaks which have indicated that corporation tax rates will be increasing. At the moment, it's a flat rate of 19%. It was supposed to drop. I've read in places that's going up to 25% for corporation tax. So big hike there. We've also read about or heard about entrepreneurs relief, which is the tax associated with selling shares in trading businesses, etc. And at the moment, it's a 10% tax rate on the first £1 million of gain, and that tax has been changed in the last few years in terms of the benefits aren't quite as they were. But I think rest assured that tax rate is going up, and it's muted that the rate is going to go from 10 to 20%, so it's going to double. And then on top of that, we've got income tax rates. So we've got dividend tax rates of 7.5%, 32.5%, 38.1%. and income tax rates of 20, 40 and 45. Again, the view is that those will go up. So in some respects, I don't think that we're going to see some or any of these changes in March, because I can't see a recovery by then. But whether it's next autumn or 2022, I can see some hefty changes in tax, because frankly, how is the government going to pay for this?
No, I agree. And from our point of view, there's a number of clients we're working with who are focused on the entrepreneur's tax relief, looking to currently exit their business, because that is a significant amount of money to them. You know, if they suddenly lose the 10% on £1 million, and there's a Mr and Mrs or two business partners, each have the lifetime allowance, selling an asset for £2 million, there's £200,000 additional tax straight away, or additional savings straight away. So is there anything that you think business owners can do to try and plan for these changes?
Well, I think, as I said before, business owners need to take advantage of all the support that is available. They should do. One thing that I think is a great tax break, and not all business owners take advantage of, that's R&D, research and development, which is a great tax break for business owners. I won't go into too much detail with it now, but the way R&D works is that it either reduces your corporation tax liability, or it provides businesses with a cash injection linked to the amount of R&D that you've carried out. So I think business owners should be exploring that for sure. I think that business owners should also try to the best of their ability, predict their cash flow. So have a running cash flow projection, which might be look at the next 16 weeks or so. So in a fair amount of detail, but then look further ahead, 3 months to 6 months. And again, I'm sure that there'll be people on this webinar that will be saying, well, we don't know what our cash flow is. And I would agree with that. But what you probably know is, you know what your cash outflows are, and therefore you know what cash you need to get in to cover those outflows. So you have to just do your best to predict things. And as I said before, take advice. Take advice from your professional advisors.
Okay, thanks for that. A little breather for you now, Murray. We are going to go into questions shortly, but I've got a couple of polls which I would like to launch. So on your screens now, you should see a tick box, check box, yes. And the question is, do you believe that the support offered in the winter plan is sufficient to support SMA businesses during the next 6 months? If you do, click yes. If you don't, click no. And if you think they were nearly there, then please click the nearly box. And we'll just hold that for another couple of seconds, let everyone get their responses in. We're currently at 80% no, 15% nearly, and 5% yes. So that's a pretty overwhelming answer that business owners do not believe that the winter plan is sufficient. So thank you very much for that. Next one. Everyone's crystal balls out, please. In the next 12 months, do you think your turnover will increase, decrease, stay the same, or it's difficult to say due to the level of uncertainty? So that's in the next 12 months, do you think your turnover will increase, decrease, stay the same, or you think it's difficult to say due to the level of uncertainty? So just another couple of seconds with that one, and I will close that one down. 3, 2, 1. And finally, some of you who've been on my webinars before will have seen these little polls. And we've launched a new energy saving review for business owners, which is completely free. We use an energy aggregator, and in the past 3 months, we've actually managed to negotiate new energy contracts for clients, business owners, which has saved them in excess of £100,000 based on their existing deals. With winter coming up, the markets are very low, as obviously oil price is reduced. So it's a very good time to look at your deal. Obviously, if you're in a fixed deal, what we can do is save your details for when your renewal period is and quote you then. So a couple of seconds, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you very much for that. Right, so that's the polls done. Over to the questions. Now, first question. Wow, you're going to need your crystal ball here, Murray. Is there any good guess about when the market will improve and there will be more jobs in the market?
I think, well, again, this is all linked to the vaccine. This is all linked to generally the people feeling better about business, the economy. It's definitely not going to happen this side of Christmas. I would be delighted if it happened in Q1 next year, but I suspect it's going to be after that. I don't know if you've got a view on it, Andrew.
No, I don't. I've actually just found out this morning that coronavirus tests are only 70% accurate. So no, I actually think worst case scenario is we've got it all next year. And what we need to do is actually understand our cash flow, our cost base, initiatives to drive new sales, and also, you know, if I give my view of what's happening in the market for business owners and business buyers, we've seen a surge. We've seen more people since the end of lockdown decide they do not want to be in employment and they want to buy business. And those range from care homes, children's day nurseries, to post offices, fish and chip shops, convenience stores. There's a certain angle of people who are looking for investment resilient businesses with income. But then there's also people who are now looking to escape city centres, who maybe want a nice big guest house in the middle of nowhere. So I think there's two. Great if somebody came up with a vaccine and we can all go back to whatever normal was. But in reality, I think we need to sort of bunker down and see what we can do. So next question, which I'll pick up. You mentioned with the KickStart that employers may not be eligible to take someone on if less than 30 employees. As a new start, that would be difficult. No, apologies if we sort of came across incorrect. If you wish to take on less than 30 employees, you need to go through an intermediary. And if you go on the gov.co.uk website, they will put your details through to somebody who will assist you with the scheme for less than 30 employees. If that's 30 KickStart employees. If you require 31 or more, you can contact the government direct and do the scheme directly. One for Murray. Is the job support scheme open to new starts who started employees on the 11th of September 2020?
Oh, I would need to check that. I read some guidance this morning which indicated it was the eligibility criteria was certainly September. Whether the 11th was right, I would need to check. So if that person wants to contact me direct, then I'll happily double check and confirm. But I think they might be okay.
Okay, good. And the next one for you again, Murray. This person would like to know about the scheme which comes into effect on the 1st of January. I think it's the 31st maybe, whereby they give you £1,000 per employee. How do we apply for this?
Yeah, again, there's not a lot of guidance, surprise on this, but you're right. If you have furloughed somebody and that person still remains with you now, so in other words, they've got continuous employment with you, whether they've been furloughed or not, then you can apply for a grant of £1,000 per person, and it talks about the grants payable, I think, or you apply for it between January and February, but there's not a lot of information on that. And all I'd say is, I think the government, it will be there nearer the time. If you think about the furlough scheme,
13th of January, it'll be there.
Yeah, it'll come out a few days in advance, but it will be there. It will be there.
Yeah. A question that's come in on KickStart: do I need to have 30 employees to access KickStart, or alternatively, do I need to have no? So you do not need to have 30 employees. There is no fixed number as far as I'm aware. What you do need to do is have new roles. They can't be for existing employees. The age of the employees need to be 24 or lower. and they also need to be registered, I think, for universal credit. And the point of the 30 employees is not about employees, it's about roles, 30 KickStart roles. If you have a requirement for 30 or more KickStart roles, you can go direct to the government to do the administration of the scheme. If you require less than 30 KickStart roles, then you need to go via an agency, of which some of them are your local council. Bizarrely, we're in Lancashire, we've got a company in Sheffield. I don't know why, I don't know who they are, but that's who we've been told we have to use. But ultimately, there is no benchmark of how many employees you need to have.
It's worth highlighting the KickStart scheme is available to everybody. However, for it to work, for the claim to be eligible, you need to use an intermediary, so that with that intermediary, you end up with a claim for 30 employees with other companies as well. So you can just have one person through the KickStart.
So one question, and we've probably missed this, Murray, but there has been obviously some changes, hasn't there, to BBLS and CBILS in terms of the time that you can repay?
Yeah, there has. There's not a lot on the government on HMRC about this at the moment, which is a bit bizarre, because I looked this morning and all it talked about was the extension of the application date to the end of November from September, but it didn't talk about anything else. But you're right, I think the repayment period has been extended by a number of years. So I think originally it was up to 5 or 6 years, and I think it's been extended past that to maybe 10 years. But there's not a lot on HMRC's websites about it at the moment, I've got to say. And the only thing, if I'm being truly negative about loans, all I would say is one of the frustrating things for clients of mine is that when you are still paying a loan 8, 9, 10 years after you took it out, that is really, really frustrating. So yes, it's great because it reduces monthly repayments, but you've just got to think about psychologically, do you really want to be paying a loan, so after so many years?
Yeah. Question just come in: are there conditions in becoming an intermediary agent for KickStart yourself? Absolutely no idea. If you could get 30 others to collect, I would expect you would have to be an official government approved body, but that would be one to speak directly to the government about. In terms of another KickStart question, do we need to recruit new staff or can they be current? No, new staff aged between 16 to 24. And someone's asked, they want to buy a small business. This will be their first business, till now salaried. If I need £200,000 loan from the bank, how's it going to happen, as banks are not taking any new applications? I already have a bounce back loan. I'm not sure how you've got a bounce back loan, but okay, banks are lending, and so are secondary lenders. There are also peer-to-peer lenders, but it all depends on a case-by-case basis. I would suggest you contact a commercial finance broker and speak to these guys. You want someone very experienced, and you want somebody who actually knows what the bank processes are. So I know somebody. I'll reach out to you after this and send an email with their details. And that is that. Thank you very much, Murray. Thank you very much to everybody who has been listening. If anybody wants to speak to Murray direct, Murray Pat at Alexander Knight & Co. Or you can just put a question on the box and say, hey, Murray, can you contact me? And we will arrange for that. And thank you very much. We look forward to speaking to you again in the future. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Are we off air now?
Nope. I'll give you a ring. I'm just some. Okay. And